to Sonic the Hedgehog from Sega Genesis.
Sonic the Hedgehog!
No fool.
Sega Genesis game system now comes with Sonic the Hedgehog.
Sonic the Hedgehog.
Sonic the Hedgehog.
Sonic Tojo.
Sonic the Hedgehog.
Sonic the Hedgehog. Our series started all the way back in 1991. A mascot made to compete with Mario has become one of, if not the most iconic video game characters of all time. But as we all know, it's the mantra of this series, he didn't come out of nowhere. There were different concepts and ideas thrown around to finally come to the Sonic we all know and love. So, it's been a long time coming. We are finally going to take a look at the development of the first Sonic the Hedgehog video game. And I want to give a quick shout out to Sonic Retro and the Cutting Room Floor, because without these websites, these videos would take so much longer to make. So shout out to them. And without further ado, let's get right into it with a little bit of background like always. The year is 1990, and Sega just released their Sega Genesis in 1989. And it's nowhere near close to competing with Nintendo, when Nintendo at the time had Mario, Zelda, Kirby, household names that everybody knew. I mean, who did Sega have? Fucking Alex Kidd? So Sega decided that a real mascot was what they needed to even stand a chance of standing toe to toe, let alone overtaking Nintendo in the gaming market. So Sega held an internal contest to see who could come up with the best mascot for Sega, which we will come back to later, because at the same time, Yuji Naka was getting ready to work on his next game, and Yuji Naka really wanted to make a fast-paced game, originally wanted to make a racing game. He was inspired by two games in particular, Ghouling Ghost, which was an action-adventure game, and the original Super Mario, specifically in the speedrunning aspects of both of those games. Since there was no save states back in the day, you had to constantly replay the levels over and over again to get better and better at them, and you would learn to beat them faster and faster. To quote him directly, so we thought it would be nice if you would enable the player to complete those stages faster, and that's the basis of Sonic Speed. We also thought this feature would also help differentiate Sonic from Mario. And at the same time, another game dev, Naoto Oshima, was trying to propose his own game titled Twin Star. While only a few concepts, the concept showed the main character to be a speedy type who would run through loops, and when showing these concepts to his boss, they told him that the only guy who could program this stuff would be Yuji Naka. And Naka-san saw this and saw a fast dude running through loops and was like, hell yeah, I'm gonna do this, and boom, just like that, the two started working together. And hopefully, he'll continue to be great friends. Anyways, back to that contest to find a mascot. Well, eventually they chose this cartoon rabbit that was chosen to be the main character, and for some reason people call him Feels, when I'm pretty sure Naoto Oshima confirmed this, it was Max, so fuck you, we're calling him Max for the rabbit. And with this rabbit, they chose one of his main abilities to be where he could pick up stuff with his ears and throw them at enemies, but Naka thought it interrupted the game's flow too much and insisted on the game only using one action button. That was when Hirokazu Yasuhara was invited to join the team. He was originally supposed to go to Sega of America to establish their R&D team, but because of the Gulf War of all things, he had to stay in Japan. That's when he saw that new mascot platformer that needed a game designer. So he accepted the job and ended up staying with them the whole development. And he was actually the guy who came up with the idea of the characters attacking by jumping on the enemies. And that caused Naka to bring up an idea he had for quite a while, the idea of a somersault attack, where you would turn into a ball when airborne, but can also curl into a ball when rolling into enemies. And with all of these new additions, Max the Rabbit kind of made no sense. So Oshima-san went back to the drawing board, making more concepts like an American dog, a bird, another rabbit, a bulldog, Bart Simpson, Eggman, and a bunch more until he eventually came up of the Blue Blur himself, originally named Mr. Hedgehog, which a lot of people to this day mistaken him for being called Mr. Needle Mouse, but Oshima himself came out to say that that was a translation error. So, Needle Mouse, I guess your whole life is a lie, I guess. Damn, that must really suck, man. Oh my god. Imagine naming your whole channel based off a translation error? Oh my, I could not be making that mistake, man. Oh, No. Could not be me. No, sir.
What?
No. The original sketches of Sonic had him look way more like a traditional hedgehog, with the quills going down all of his body and being a bit more round. He even had a little bow tie in one of his earlier designs. But Oshima-san wanted Sonic to be instantly recognizable. He took the color of Santa, the most popular person in the world, according to him, and put his red color on his shoes. And speaking of his shoes, Oshima-san also wanted to call back to popular culture again by making the shoes inspired by Michael Jackson's boots that he wore in the Beat It music video. And honestly, that was really smart, using two of the most popular pop culture figures of the time to make an equally iconic key mark of Sonic and gaming in general. And eventually, the large amount of quills was brought down to like 3, because he wanted his silhouette to be recognizable and iconic. And they changed his color from a teal to a blue. 1, because of the Sega logo, and 2, it represents Sonic's character of coolness and freedom. And to Oshima, the color blue meant something to him. It symbolized the hope that the open sky is blue forever. And finally, the name. They obviously didn't want to stick with Mr. Hedgehog, so they thought of coming up with a name that matched his ability, speed. So the character was dubbed Sonic the Hedgehog. And something that they wanted for this character was it to bang in the States. So they made Sonic and the games to try to appeal to Americans as much as possible. Sonic's attitude was inspired by Bill Clinton and his get it done now attitude. His attitude that's all fuck authority in the West was also cool to match with the sentiment of the 90s teens. But Sonic was made to be a free spirit who does what he wants on his own terms. So those Western ideals that they were going for meshed in perfectly. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, we are now at the point where development of the game has officially started, and we get to look at my favorite thing, level concepts, yay! First up, we have Green Hill Zone, the most iconic level in the Sonic franchise. And again, we get to see Sonic taking inspiration from America, specifically in California for Green Hill. The rolling green hills and the clear blue skies and the palm trees were put there to evoke the LA vibes of the level, and even in early versions of the level, the mountains were way more prominent and can be referencing the fact that California's topology is quite high, hosting the tallest mountain in the US, Mount Whitney. Speaking of, let's take a quick detour to one of my favorite topics to talk about in Sonic, the Lost Tokyo Toy Show demo of Sonic the Hedgehog. I made a whole video on this topic a long time ago, so to not bore you with the details, for the 1990 Tokyo Toy Show, Sega wanted to show off their demo of Sonic 1, which showed off a very early version of Green Hill Zone, and it seemed like this demo wasn't even fully playable and was just one of those auto demos, like the one of those videos that would play when you don't start the game on the title screen. But Yuji Naka had said that it was playable, and he wanted to put the demo in the Mega Collection, but when looking for it, he couldn't find it, so it became lost media. Now, with that out of the way, what are the actual differences to the final game? Well, for starters, the title screen is completely black, and instead of fading in, Sonic flashes onto the screen. Let's look at Sonic himself first. He looks a little different here. His stance is way more ready to run at any time, rather than just standing ready. Something else that seems missing is that when Sonic jumps, he doesn't curl into a ball yet, so that feature probably wasn't implemented yet. We could also see these rock type enemies in the game that were used all the way back in Oshima-san's Twin Star concept art, rather than the typical badniks that we see. Probably this is when Eggman wasn't even considered to be an enemy yet, and that like devil monster was. Green Hill itself though, like previously mentioned, seems way more in a mountain range, with these tall mountains in the back and these gray stones in the background as well. And the sky takes on a bit of a darker shade of blue, and the lake that we see in the final game is nowhere to be found, but we still see the iconic checkerboard pattern with the striped grass and palm trees. And something interesting here is that in this demo, not only do we have a background parallax effect, but we also get a foreground one as well, with the trees and rocks moving faster in front of Sonic. There's even a sign in the level that introduces you to the level. It says, "You are welcome, never open." So it seems that each world would have an intro sign to get you into the level. Overall, this level was probably the very first thing that they made for the game, since Tokyo Tosho was a year before the game's launch in June 7th. So they just wanted to show off what they had so far. But it does suck that this was lost. I do hope that one day Sonic Team or somebody finds it. Maybe it'll be me. Sega, please, please. I've been asking you forever. Please let me find it, man! Up next, we have a cut stage, the Golden Capital Zone. And if you're familiar with cut zones, you'll recognize the sun loop here. This stage seems to be more metallic with streets of gold and takes a more Southeast Asian vibe with the temples in the back and the lush forest. And it seems like this level would actually be the first level in the game, with it being labeled 1 while Green Hill was actually labeled 2. Level 3 seems to be another cut level that takes way more inspiration from Japan with Mount Fuji in the back and the Tokyo Tower there as well. Level 4 seems to be early concepts of Marble Zone, but here it seems to lean way more into the ruined feel of the zone, and some areas where you can dig into the ground. And for some reason, the level has these floating tiles, and they're even existing in one of the prototypes of the game. Up next, we have Spring Yard Zone, which was originally named Sparkling Zone, but we don't get to see much of it. But we do get to see Mr. Hamburger Helper over here, and the zone looks way more like a Vegas strip with all the signs and even a slot machine in the back. But we do have another screenshot labeled 5, and it seems to be a space level that would even have low gravity mechanics. Maybe in Act 2, but I'm not sure. The next level is Labyrinth Zone, but it seems to have a more ethereal look to it. Up next is Starlight Zone, which takes its name quite literally, with a giant shooting star, and it looks way more like a carnival rather than a construction site, with this roller coaster looking thing that Sonic is on with balloons in the back. The next labeled level, level 6, is dubbed, and I'm quote, the Great Spirit World themed stage based off a China-like place. Level 7 is dubbed as the laboratory level, and you can see Sonic go through these different pipes and end up in different parts of the level. And finally, level 8, which looks like Scrap Brain Zone, and we can even see these spinny things that show up in the final game. Looking back at these concept arts, the best way to describe them is if Sonic leaned more into the fantasy vibe rather than the surrealism. It feels so much like Oshima's early works on Twin Star, because everything here feels so magical and wondrous rather than the surreal feeling that we would usually get. And I don't know how we would feel about it if we went this direction, but I guess we'll never know. Up next, I want to talk about the prototype of Sonic 1 that was found and dumped on January 1st, 2021. Now, we will be looking at this one mostly, but there are screenshots of an earlier prototype, so when we are in that respective level, we will look at the screenshots if there is something different, starting with the title screen and startup. First off, the classic is gone and is replaced with the basic Sega logo, and the Sonic Team Presents screen isn't in yet. The title screen itself has a press start button text appearing properly before it was bugged. Now we finally get into Green Hill Zone, and for the most part in this prototype, the level design and item placement is practically the same, except for this notorious rolling boulder that appears in this level only, and we will be talking about its use later. And in this prototype, there is nothing else, but in the CES prototype, we can see a pig bomber that were added in Scrap Brain Zone and Green Hill Zone, but besides that, it's pretty similar to the final game. And when you get to the goalpost, instead of Sonic running off, we see the cut fist bumping animation that would play instead. Moving on to Marble Zone, in the sky we can see these floating saucers in the back. No idea what they're doing there, but it also looks like those yellow platforms are gone. But for some reason in the older prototypes, the level almost looks one-to-one with the concept art, with the floating platforms and the temples and even the pillars looking exactly the same. And the lava on the bottom looks way more visible and prominent, and the level terrain is way more jagged. And again, in early builds, we see sideways spike pillars that were removed and replaced with these moving blocks in the final game. Starlight Zone, being called Sparkling Zone, is probably the one with the most radical changes to the final game, looking way more like the concept arts and the Vegas Strip aesthetic with all the signs in the back like the go-go and the good luck sign, and just all of the lights and the stars in the sky. And for some reason, this level is only one act long. And finally Starlight Zone, which actually has way more different level design than the final, being way more platforming based and not having the iconic speed that we are used to. And a lot of the things like enemies, stage hazards are just not placed like the fans. The collision's also not finished. And again, this is only one act, but that's not all, because like most prototypes, you can access the level select, and through the level select, we can access Act 2 of Sparkling Zone and Starlight Zone, and 2 acts of a very unfinished Scrap Brain Zone, formerly known as Clockwork Zone, and Labyrinth Zone. For Spring Yard Zone, again, it's basically the same level, but with different item placements and early level layouts. And Starlight Zone felt way more like Act 3, but a lot of the level stuff is still not finished and isn't beatable without dev mode. Now, the last 2 levels are bare bones. They're only levels in level layout. No enemies, no rings, and the skybox is really fucked in Scrap Brain Zone. And the level gimmicks don't work properly half the time and aren't even there properly placed. And Act 2 doesn't even have a background. It's similar to where the level design is the same, but everything is gone. But for some reason, the spinning things work to some extent, but don't animate. But the pipes don't work, and the conveyor belts don't work, and again, the level isn't beatable without debug mode. And similarly with Labyrinth Zone, the level is only complete with the level design, but there's still no enemies, no water, no gimmicks, but there is an early background that makes the labyrinth seem like it's in a large, empty cave rather than a temple. And honestly, I prefer this way more, and it's the same deal with Act 2. And finally, we have an early version of the special stage, and it looks kind of just like a test stage to see how everything works, because you can't lose. You can press A and B and hold them down to speed them up, and to turn them left and right respectfully, and pausing will reset the speed. But after that, that is everything that we can see in the prototypes. It is so interesting to see prototypes like this, because you can see the minor differences and the major differences before things were changed. We still don't have that Tokyo Toy Show demo though. Fuck, man. Ugh.
I can't take it anymore.
Up next, I want to talk about some cool concept art that I found for the game, starting off with probably the most infamous, Sonic's girlfriend. So this is where it started. It's something that for some reason they keep trying to do throughout the series, but she never made it past the concept stages because she seemed too much like Sonic's Peach, and they didn't want to make the cliche for their game. She could be seen in this concept art with Sonic and a bunch of old Twin Star enemies, and the main villain of the game for the concept art. Another funny one is Sonic and the band, with a monkey playing bass, a rabbit playing drums, a chicken playing guitar, and Vector on the keyboard, and the main man on vocals. Then we have what is probably the very first 3D Sonic model ever made, which is actually a real physical model that was made for references when making promotional material. And fun fact, this was what they used for the basis of the Sonic CD title screen. Up next, we have some really cool storyboards concepts for Sonic, one of them being a scrapped item collecting mechanic, an alternate version of the Green Hill boss, an alternate final boss with turret shooting at Sonic, and a different ending more similar to Sonic the Hedgehog 2, where Sonic would destroy Eggman's ship but then would fall from the sky and be caught by a bird. Now, the big collection. A ton of game design sketches. Similar to Sonic CD, these would be sketched out ideas of game mechanics, like this one that would show a bridge physics and show Sonic breaking a bridge and the logs would fall down and roll down a hill, or a hazard that would slow Sonic down, and these cool ones that had different loop designs, like this one where Sonic would go through a loop and then shoot out to a lower path, or would loop around, hit the ground, and then jump out of a spring that would shoot him at the top. They had an idea where Sonic would have a bomb and they would destroy the ground and even reveal different paths. We had springs that would lead you to different paths in the level. They had a seesaw mechanic. They had this area called the high-speed rolling areas, where if Sonic would go down these, icicles would fall on top of him. And they had so many different ideas that just didn't make it into the final game. And finally, we have cut features from the game. And we're gonna go through these quickly because they're not that crazy. It's also some stuff we saw before. First off, we have Sonic gulping for air while standing. We have Sonic fist bumping, which we saw in the early prototype. We have Sonic surfing, which was also used in CD, but its use is unknown. We have Sonic spin dashing in different angles, Sonic falling, which again was seen in Sonic CD, and we have Sonic holding his breath, which is probably when he was about to drown. Now we have 4 unused monitors. The first one is a Robotnik monitor that we can see in early prototypes but goes unused in the final game. We have the infamous goggles, which was once originally thought to let Sonic breathe on the water, but they were later confirmed they had no functionality. Up next is a static monitor, which has no functionality, and an S monitor, which, similar to Sonic CD, when broken, instead of giving Supersonic, which doesn't exist yet, you would get invincibility and super speed instead. Up next, we have the rolling boulder that Sonic can stand and push, and originally it would have had some use. It would have been used to break through walls and reveal secret paths. Up next, we have the horizontal spike things we saw in Marble Zone, which were cut from the final game, and then we get to see the infamous Splat the Bunny, which was cut from Sonic 1, and even in the prototype of Sonic 1, he doesn't appear unless he is used in debug mode to spawn him in. We then have an unused flashing switch, which was used in Labyrinth Zone. We have some sprites of an unused sign in Sparkling Zone, and finally, we have an unused Eggman explosion that would have been part of a cut finale. The development of Sonic the Hedgehog is so fascinating to me. It's probably the one that we have the most concept art for, and we can see the most changes of this series. It's something about the early look of Sonic with the more fantasy vibe, the lost demo of the Tokyo Toy Show, and all of the scrapped ideas just hit me different. Maybe it's because the series could have looked completely different if it went that way, but I guess we'll never know. And that's really all I have to say for today, ladies and gentlemen. If you guys enjoyed, make sure to like and subscribe, turn on notifications, and comment down below. What did you guys like from this video? Do you guys think I missed something? I'm pretty sure I did miss a few things. But thank you all so much for watching the video. This is a long time coming. I wanted to make this video for years. Like almost like a year and a half, maybe 2 years already. But I think it's time that we did it. We're almost at 12K. So I want to thank y'all almost for that. This year has been crazy. We've been moving faster and faster. So let's see how well we can do. Hopefully we can get to 20K by the end of the year. I see it possible. So who knows? And once again, thank y'all so much for watching the video. Hope y'all enjoyed. And I'll see y'all in the next one. Bye! Bye bye bye!